This is kind of the first time we've had an event when it's been this cold. The guys that put the furnaces in tell me that we can make it 71 degrees in 5 below weather. I don't know what we have it set at, but I don't quite feel like it's 71 degrees. Are you reasonably comfortable?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. We can have you stand up and stomp your feet once in a while if needed. My name's Tom Colvin. I'm the CEO of the Animal Rescue League of Iowa. And that's a position that I've been graced with for the last 30 plus years. And the Animal Rescue League has grown tremendously. How many of you are from the central Iowa area? Okay, so a good fair share. We do have one visitor from 4 hours away, maybe some further. But this, where you're at right now, is called the Crime Near Second Chance Ranch. And it's all about second chances. We have another facility, if you don't know, about a mile straight west from here. And that's where our dogs and cats and other animals are. But this place is primarily dedicated to horses and chickens and ducks, as you see, the occasional goat, llama, you name it. Animals need to be rescued regardless of their species. So the Animal Rescue League has always taken that to heart, the word animal in our name, and we've always wanted to make sure that there were safeguards against animals being left in neglectful homes. So the animals you see here have been rescued from really all over Iowa. And they've either been taken out in neglectful situations, or they've had to get turned into the Animal Rescue League for a variety of reasons. You know, like our beautiful Luca that you see down here, the Arabian, lost his family, you know, his two-legged and his four-legged friends. So they needed to have a place for Luca to come. Other ones, like Daisy, came to us just a rack of bones when people just did not do what they should do with animals and neglected them, and they had to have those animals removed. But the Animal Rescue League is all about education. So when you see the arena here, and when you come back, we've actually only had this facility for a year and a half, so we're not done. We're going to have an outside arena. We'll do a lot of educational type of things on horse care and animal care and that type of thing. So there's a lot more that you're going to be seeing at the Animal Rescue League at this facility. But the biggest thing, the takeaway that I'd like you to help me share is that we have this place. We have horses that need to be placed, chickens, ducks, all those other animals as well, and help us spread that word that we have wonderful pets that are not dogs and cats, but need help as well. Now, we are fortunate to have a couple in this room that's also making it possible for us to build a very, very nice, what we call Camp Purr. Camp Purr are working cats. They are cats that would not be the best in a home environment, either their choice or other people's choice. So they're going to have an area here where they can go for a second career into being a barn cat, or a warehouse cat, or acreage cat, or those types of things as well. So thank you to the Matthews for making that possible. That will be coming as soon as we can jump all through all the hoops to get that done. You don't want to get me started. So anyway, I am particularly excited about tonight. I'll tell you, I have been, and then I'm going to turn this over to Jan. I don't want to steal too much away. I'm just saying that my personal journey with Mark's book has been amazing. I'm a little over halfway done, and I cannot wait to get back to it. I'll be back to it yet tonight. It is absolutely incredible. And so I'm a little starstruck tonight by getting a chance to meet your speaker. So with that, let me introduce Jan Kaiser. Jan and I tend to go way back, quite frankly. You know, there's been a number of things that we've done together. We're going to do a lot more, aren't we, Jan?
Yes.
All right.
Hopefully. Good evening. It is my pleasure to do the introduction. Thanks for coming to this very special event, and we are so proud at Beaverdale Books to be able to partner with the Animal Rescue League and to feature the Second Chance Ranch. Big thanks to Tom and all of his wonderful staff and the volunteers that just made us feel like we were right at home the minute we walked in. A couple of housekeeping details. Be sure to turn off your phones. You don't want to scare the horses. And photos are allowed. Just please be sure your flash is turned off. And we will have a signing line after tonight's program. The author is happy to sign any of the books that you purchase from Beaverdale Books, of course. And if you're in the signing line and you might have brought along your copy of House of Leaves, he will sign that as well. Mark Danielewski is an acclaimed American author born in New York City. He grew up in a creative environment and he moved frequently due to his father's film projects, living in various countries including Ghana, India, and Spain, before finally settling in Provo, Utah at the age of 10. He graduated from Yale University with a degree in English literature, where he studied under notable figures such as John Hollander and Harold Bloom. He is best known for his debut novel, House of Leaves, that was published in 2000. The book's complex narrative structure, unconventional typography, and intricate footnotes challenged traditional storytelling methods and garnered a cult following. It won the New York Public Library's Young Lions Fiction Award in 2001, and his second novel, released in 2006, Only Revolutions, was a finalist for the National Book Award. Other works include The 50-Year Sword and The Familiar. In recent years, Mark has continued to push the boundaries of literature with his innovative storytelling. His works have been the focus of academic study and literary events, solidifying his status as a prominent figure in contemporary literature. Now, please join me in a very warm welcome from Mark Z. Danielewski.
Usually the way this starts is I make some joke. A friend of mine who said the best way to start anything like this is to take off a piece of clothing. I'm not going to do that right now. Maybe we'll get to the scarf, but I thought it was pretty balmy when I arrived. I was looking ahead and I was like, wow, it's almost down to 0. That is a different temperature. But now we're sort of, it's snow flurry weather, right? A special thanks to Beaverdale Books, and of course, Second Chance Ranch. I mean, I can't tell you, what I'm about to tell you, my publisher would not want me to tell you, all right? Which is, I'm so moved to be here, and it was such a surprise to see the whole facility. I wasn't sure if we were just partnering, if it was just going to be a banner in a bookstore, promoting it, which I was all in favor. But here we are among these beautiful horses, and honestly, it's way more important for you to say hello to the horses than it is for you to say to me. And I would say if there's an opportunity to give money to this place over buying my book, then give your money to this place. This is where you want it to go. And the book is going to be around for a while, because I will tell you, spoiler, that I'm a huge believer in this book. It's the best thing that I've ever written. And I don't think I will ever write another book like this again. I know what it takes. To immediately get into the weeds or the golden haze that can be nibbled by horses, I'm not even sure it is a book. It looks like a book. I recognize that. It's heavy, it's got the binding, it's got those beautiful deckled edges. That was my choice. I love them. I mean, everything about that book has been designed, so it appears like a book, and at the same time, it's different than a book. It's a different kind of experience that you can't easily get from another piece of fiction, I guess. And part of that is just the amount of time that I know that went into that. Some people, people call it a Western. It says so on the title page in a very fancy little font, which should alert you that maybe all that fanciness is to point out that something else is going on. So, is it a Western or isn't it a Western? You know, not sure. It's kind of unfolded. You know, this is a huge delivery for me. It begins to take shape outside of me now. It's beyond me. Person recently called it a lived experience. Another person called it, the time telling is just always fascinating. But everyone in this audience knows it's just not true. It's just not at dawn. It's any time there's a rooster near you when you're about to hit REM sleep, and wham, it goes. And another person called it more vivid than cinema, which I thought was the strangest description that I'd heard. But then I began to realize, especially living in Los Angeles and having friends who are filmmakers, that there's an element there that's true in a way, that it's so detailed in a way that it would go beyond what any camera could film, unless you really had the patience to spend a lot of time unfolding visually a scene. It addresses something in the visual that is different from what you could ever hope to see on a screen. But the most common descriptor of this book is that it's a brick. And I hear this often. And enough that it's been, online, it's been whispered about, it's been, written about, that a friend of mine who's concerned decided he would take on the challenge of whether or not Tom's Crossing is a brick. So he turned to the oracle of our day, ChatGPT, and demanded a definition for brick. And it said, an object weighing 5 to 7 pounds. And he took a picture of Tom's Crossing on his scale. It was 3.1 pounds. And then he texted me, all caps, first word, not a brick. That is the only definite thing I can give you tonight. You can walk out of here going, well, no, two. One, it's not a brick, and two, I should send some money to this place because I love these horses. So, with that idea that everything is kind of a little unstable, then perhaps that's the clearest view of who I am, in a way, is that I like to see the things that are stable destabilized. But I don't like to see them necessarily fall. That's not the same thing. The point is that there's movement, there's space, there's a place to change our lives, our perception of systems of things, closeness that we feel with people, the distance that we experience with people. All of those are negotiable. And I think that in some ways is what I attempt through this literary fiction, is to show how many of these spaces and these perceptions are negotiable. The most clear example would be, say, this is a reading. I mean, that's how I was always taught. You went to readings. Like, if you wanted to be a novelist, you got to be you get to give a reading. And I took that very literally. And so I remember when House of Leaves first came out, 2000, I went and I gave a reading. It was like 45 minutes long. And, most people walked out. There was one guy, they were smallly attended events. The one guy was homeless. He stayed, so there was some magic there. And then recently, since it had been a while since I'd been on tour, and this is actually the second tour for Tom's Crossing, but Des Moines is number one, round two. We had to get out of just New York, Chicago, Boston, and LA. I was like, okay, come on, let's go. And so the question then was, well, what is this? So I talked to a few booksellers, and I remember one, they were like a Laurel and Hardy act. And I said, so how long do authors read? And one guy said, 10 minutes. And the other guy was like, and he goes, 5 minutes. I was like, 5 minutes? And then the other guy was like, 3 minutes. 3 minutes is the reading. So I'm going to overwhelm you tonight with a reading that is about 6 minutes and 50 seconds, all right? I realize that's going to be a challenge, but we can do it, okay? I'm even, in the spirit of the Western, going to put on a little bit of a twang, which is very reminiscent, not entirely, of my days in Utah. So if this isn't a reading, then what is it? Is it a performance? Well, if it was a performance, then I should have like a guitar, or ukulele, or it should be some polished jokes. I suppose in some sense it's a performance in that there will be repetition. There will be things that I have said before when I was on tour, because they're things I like to talk about. If it comes up, I'd like to talk about, the moral importance of literature. I'd like to talk about maybe what forgiveness means in practice. Yes, and I'd like to talk about that too. So, in essence, I think the way I got away from this problem, because I don't want to give a performance, I want to be here, totally welcome, is just to make it as fresh as possible in terms of being here with you, because this is the moment. Everything else is terrible. I don't like getting up early to go through the TSA multiple times, right? Airports are rough, it is. And then tomorrow I get to get up at 4 a.m. so I can get to the next one. And it's like, that isn't fun, It's like I want to be home with my family, my cats, and my own little daydreams, But when I get here, this is amazing. So this is our moment, Who knows when I'm going to come back? And so there will be a time to have questions, to have a conversation, reveal something, maybe not. But that's the goal here. And that's already kind of destabilized what this night's expectation is. Except for the signature. I will sign your books, so you can feel at ease there. You'll be like, oh, okay, they'll sign my books. And so that's it. And so I guess the final point that I want to make, especially when it comes to readings or performances or what this is that this is also the aftermath. The only thing that matters, the only performance that matters, is this. This is the best thing I've ever done. And it's all in there. You don't need me anymore. This is the journey that if you want to take, you can take it. It's a hard journey. You can try to take it fast. That's like sprinting up a mountain. You won't make it. If you do, you still won't make it. You won't understand what happened. But if you're willing to take the journey and take it slowly, in the sort of meditative practice of what this book offers, then you will find that view that is in there. And it will be as much about you as it will be about the book. But I will also give you a warning. This book is haunted. I'm not saying that lightly. You tell ghost stories to each other. Was that a ghost? I don't know. The candle flickered, the window shut at the same time that I said window shut. We all have those stories. This is haunted. You will ride with your death if you read this. And there's peace to be found. But it's up to you to make it. All right. Now I'm going to read the story of Mouse. Mouse is one of the horses that are rescued. There are 2 horses that are rescued. And I've never read this before out loud. So, whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter to me. Because I'm so excited. The story of Mouse. In case you hadn't surmised yet, our Navidad here, the other horse, has great affection for that horse, and she'll do pretty much anything to be near him too. Probably even fly if she has to. Why? Well, a lot of reasons, but also because Mouse is brave. As you well know, Mouse ain't the biggest or even the toughest, but he sure has courage. More for sure than you and me, or Landry, or any other hero we want to throw a parade for. Mouse is undeterred. But he weren't always like that. By the eye of his long mind, he found himself this time raised up in Pennsylvania, with once again no more regard for either the long road traveled or the road that's even longer ahead. Being thought of as too squat and misshapen for the farm where he was at, he was soon sold on his teeth to a stable in Connecticut, soon went broke and sold all their horses to a ranch in Texas. Mouse didn't settle there neither. There were more farms and ranches in his future. Wherever he landed, Mouse was mostly left alone. The hands around saw to his health, but otherwise ignored him. It was the other horses that attended to the education. Some wild, some already broke, some badly broke. But that one that saw Mouse become the Mouse we know now was in Appaloosa, out on the dusty ruins north of Big Bend. And this creature was as mean as he was big. With both ears tore up and one eye blind from batterings, he hadn't been shoed in years, put out to pasture by the sentimental rancher who'd known the horse before he'd become something else, who'd named that Appaloosa Chimp. Upon Mouse's arrival at the Dizzy Jane Ranch, Chimp set eyes on Mouse first thing, trotted up and dragged his teeth along Mouse's backside, just for the heck of it. Well, Mouse tried to shy away from Chimp best he could every day, but Chimp would find him, cutting him out of whatever group Mouse was trying to hide in, and then he tormented our poor blood bay. Sure, a day or maybe a week would pass when Chimp lost interest. Then something ugly would spark up again in him, and that big, mean Appaloosa would run after Mouse again. Poor Chimp had no idea who he was messing with. Poor Chimp never could reckon that he had a life way too short to understand what the old see at once and know to shot for it even quicker. For his part, Mouse confused matters by continuing to run away, maybe with a half-hearted kick or two, or never more. And now and then he'd go for a bite, but his heart weren't in it. He missed every time. The Chimp was blinded by them hapless snaps. There are horses men break. We know that lore like it's an entitlement. But there are also horses broke by other horses. And Mouse sure looked broken. Mouse even felt broken. By this point, Mouse didn't care much for Mouse and would run every time towards whatever escape he deemed most viable, even if there weren't never no viable escape. And when Chimp pinned his ears and charged across the paddock, that was it. And then Navidad arrived. And that changed everything. She was taller than Mouse, leaner too, though she looked the same age, the same knowing, if not from the same eons of trials. She bounded around the other horses, and in them early weeks, Chimp was so fascinated by Navidad, he forgot about Mouse. But Mouse never forgot Chimp, and kept an eye out for Navidad. He knew the day was going to come, and as you can rightly gather, he was right. It were on a Sunday. They was all out on the East Acres. Morning was up, only by a bit. Chimp had himself a chomp of burnt clover, and then trotted himself towards that beautiful black mare. That's right. Now at this point, Navidad weren't paying no mind to Mouse. And to be clear, that hardly mattered to Mouse. He was also undeterred by indifference. He was just content to see her. Navidad reminded him of something, but what or who that might be remains unclear to even me. Were I to offer a rash conjecture of his remembrance, it would be the memory of himself, before it was so badly deformed by the defeat and circumstances of this present life. I guess we all know that feeling. Something about us that ain't rightly expressed because of how we was raised. Maybe there's still a trace, some part still unharmed, still unexpressed. Lucky are them, most will say, whose futures alive with promise of their inheritance. But I'd say they're the most cursed. Most blessed, maybe, are the battered, who in a rare encounter or accident discover a different future, which upon following not only returns them to the self they forgot, but reveals how the cost of their trials has made them into someone they never could have imagined. That's what Navidad did for Mouse. So when Mouse caught sight of Chimp heading for Navidad, he didn't hesitate. With not a length to spare, Mouse came between Navidad and Chimp. Chimp, as he was so oft to do, dragged his teeth across Mouse's back, his head already full with the notion that Mouse was already scurrying away like he'd done every time before. Chimp was so blinded by what he expected that he didn't see how Mouse weren't gone at all, but planting both front legs, and with the force of not one but two, drove both rear hooves up at him, one right behind Chimp's good eye, the other right on Chimp's neck. Killed Chimp, that kick did. Not on the spot, not like that, but in the way no sane spit of life wants to go. Chimp collapsed, his spine cracked, his head a bleeding mess, blind now pretty much in both eyes. He stayed that way for hours, too, till the sentimental rancher, with his weepy, sentimental son, ordered a hand to put a bullet in Chimp's brain. And she did it, quickly at least. Navidad had no clue what was happening. She just ran off at the first sight of Mouse's flying hooves. Later, though, she found herself calmer and more at ease around Mouse. And from then on, Mouse was always around her, never imposing much, but never far off either. And they stayed that way, even when they were sold from Texas to stables in Heber, and from there to Porch. Eventually put into Paddock A, where you and me found them, and dared to think we could ride them. And in riding them, dared to dream of making a difference in how they would know their end. Thank you. I don't know if that got you, but got me suddenly just to think about, where we're sitting right now, just like, can we make a difference for these animals, so they can know a different end. So, any questions? And yes, I did take a scarf. Yes.
Kendall tells me that the reading time for this book is 24 hours and 38 minutes.
Oh,
Which made
fast
me curious
Kindle.
how long, it made me curious how long did it take you to write it?
Oh, well, like I said, it was a lifetime. It took me 5, 6, 7 years to write. But I wouldn't, if I had started out when I was writing House of Leaves, I couldn't have written this book. I mean, it's a mountain, this book. And I'm going to argue with your Kindle, I often do. We're in the middle of finishing the audiobook for Tom's Crossing. Penguin Random House has done a wonderful job, at least as where Pantheon, my publisher, my imprint is concerned. And I've been with the same imprint for over 25 years now, which is kind of remarkable. I've seen a few people come and go there, but I have the same editor, very, very lucky. But like any big corporation, sometimes they get things wrong. And they called me months before the book went on sale, which was October 28th, and said, hey, we're going to do the audiobook. I said, well, that's great. And I said, well, is it going to be out in a year? And they said, oh, no, it'll be out on October 28th. And I said, oh, you think you're going to do that in 3 months? We're pros. So the process started. If you check your Kindle right now, it's going to tell you that audiobook is unavailable. So you already know the end of this story. It did not happen on October 28th. But a great crew was assembled. I mean, it is quite a production. A great actor, great co-director, producer. And normally when a book is recorded, it takes like 3 days. That would be probably a YA book. And maybe a longer book is like 6 or 7 or 8 days. We're on day 27, and we're not finished. We're thinking it's going to be easily over 60 hours. Now, it's definitely a little slower when you're listening, but you see my issue with your Kindle. Right? My advice is that, again, a very strange thing for an author to do. I've never told anyone how to read my books, so you read it however you want. But I think take a few pages a day at most. Take 2 or 3 months. I mean, it's a monster. I see other questions, but I have another story because even having written 9 books and having had success, there's still this awful process of attempting to get blurbs, right? You're going to send your book out and try to get a blurb. And so I talked to my editor, and he wanted to send out a very early version. So we called it the pre-gallery. There were still, like, by my estimation, 12,000 errors that I needed to correct. But I agreed. And so we sent it out. It only had brown paper on top, with just the title, Tom's Crossing. And we sent it out to 18 people, writers that I admire. And I know what a burden this is. I know what a big book is. Books are, they're to me, they're kind of mystical things. They get into your life when you need them. You know, you don't just say, I'm going to do this, because just walk into any library and look at all the walls and you realize immediately they outdistance you. There is more time on those shelves than you have. So how are you going to spend it? What lucky book are you going to get to spend time with? And what lucky book is going to choose you? Anyway, 0. So I'm like, wow, okay. And then it was like late summer. I get a postcard. Handwritten postcard. It's hi, Mark. No, hi, Mr. D. That's what it was. The story's good. The language lux. Reminds me of certain authors. This is delish, but it's taking a long time. Only 300 pages. Steve. Steve. Who the hell is Steve? I take it to my wife. I'm like, Steve? Did we send it to Steve? She goes, there's a K. Steve K. Steve K, even worse. And we're like, oh wow, it's Stephen King. Big moment. I mean, come on, rock star. I don't care if you don't like him. He's probably the most globally, recognized author there is. And a handwritten note. And then it felt very much like a Seinfeld or a Larry David episode where the bit is like, he said something nice, but it's not an official blurb. So the scene in like Larry David world would be he's opening a restaurant and he wants a food critic and he gets this postcard, it's delish, and he's like, we can use it. And he goes, no, you can't. It's a postcard, it's not official. I didn't even tell my editor. I was like, it's pointless, it doesn't count. And then, another 2 months later, my editor says, hey, I just got an email from Stephen King. What did he say? He's like, he wants my email address. It's like, yeah, but he emailed you. What do you mean you want? He says his email just keeps bouncing. He wants to write about Tom's Crossing. This is incredible. We're going to get a blurb. Cut to the Larry David episode, right? He's like, yes, it's coming, it's coming. Weeks pass. And we're like, it's not coming. It's not coming. In the end, he wrote this gorgeous blurb, which is on the back of the book. And it was so meaningful to me. I mean, I know how hard it is to make time to read something that's unexpected, that's that long, that's that demanding. At the same time, it was also kind of shaming, because I'm like, wow, this guy's written so many books, he's done so many things, movies, and he's still reading galleys. I've got to do better. So for me, it really was an inspiration. I have to try to do better, to read more, and help young writers. I'm not that young, but anyway. And anyway, so it was just kind of this magical time, and then that was enough. And then he sent me a personal email, and he said, I just want to let you know that I read every single word. And then praise followed. It's just like, wow. So if Stephen King, who has got to be the fastest reader and fastest writer, takes 4 months reading Tom's Crossing, I'm going to put that above your Kindle tree. Questions, or are we done? Yes.
Well, first of all, I find it ironic that you said that. I'm reading it right now, so it's the audiobook is 45 hours, or 45, episodes. He also writes long books. Speaking of which, what is your inspiration and what scares you?
Oh, well, let's get it. Well, the question was, what's my inspiration and what scares me? Well, what do you mean by inspiration? For what?
For inspiration. Like, what did you grow up reading under the covers with the flashlight? Right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I will say this, that jumping ahead to Tom's Crossing, it's more curious in its influences, say. House of Leaves in many ways well, actually almost in all ways, lists all its influences. So literally they're just lists of books that influence it. And horror for me runs a wide gamut. It is Carrie or Cujo or The Shining, but it's also Moby Dick. It's also Hawthorne. It's the poems of Emily Dickinson. I mean, what scares me now, aside from just coming up here, I mean, I have to tell you, it is kind of terrifying. I was like walking up the door, I'm like, why? Telling my wife, daughter, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know what it is. I'm flying for hours, and then I go, and then I miss, but the book's done, and like, what is it? And it is terrifying. I mean, I'm saying it, we're laughing now, and you're making me feel very welcome, so thank you. But it's a strange experience. Most of my time is alone. It's with sentences. It's how words are put together and how they work in concert when there's 3 or 4 of them, and then 3 or 4 phrases, and then phrases upon phrases, and then how do all of those things begin to re-echo and re-answer things later on in the book. I mean, with Tom's Crossing, and it's one of the reasons I say I don't think I'll ever be able to write a book like this again, I was able to hold the whole thing in my head. That's 1,232 pages. I held the blank pages in my head as well, which is also kind of terrifying. But I would wake up knowing exactly where one word was, and it appeared less than a dozen times across 1,200 pages, and I realized that word had to be changed. And in changing that one word, I then realized how it would change other words, not proximally, but beyond it. So it's almost mathematical in the way that happens. And so that's terrifying in some ways. Like, the real terror is understanding that the mind can, almost in an athletic metaphor, it can only go so far, and eventually it will diminish. And so, hear ye, this is me right before the great diminishment. Yes, in the back.
Kind of 2 parts, but well, first of all, thank you. Like, this is really cool. I've watched your your stuff on YouTube where you talk about some of this, like how long expressive words and your process and stuff. You said that Tom's Crossing is something that took you 5, 6, 7, 8 years. In the Familiar Volume 1, in the opening, I don't know what you call it, trailer.
Right, yeah.
There's 3 or 4 pages with little Tom's Crossing bits in there. So you've known about Tom's Crossing much longer. Can you just talk about that?
Right, so the question is, okay, a really silly story, just an aside. It has nothing to do, except I just want to tell it and just see how we handle it here in Des Moines. I had a book launch, and the most genius element of this book launch party was that I wanted all my daughter's friends to come. My daughter's 7.5. So kids were invited, and they all got little cowboy hats. So they're running around with little cowboy hats. It was just awesome. We had hay bales, we had music. It was just a party. I didn't sign. I gave a small little reading. And I got up and I just explained that it took me 5, 6, 7 years to write. And when I said 6, 7, I didn't do that. But the riot that happened on the front row was incomprehensible to me. So just remember, if you're reading something in mine and you're going, this is incomprehensible, just remember, the author was up there going 6, 7, screaming kids in front of them, and it was incomprehensible. So, yes, when I started The Familiar, I put in this trailer called Tom's Crossing. Tom's Crossing, the way it was written for The Familiar, which was an anticipated series that would take 27 volumes. But I only got as far as 5 volumes, which is, I call it season 1. So it was in concordance. It was sort of aligned with everything that was going to unfold in that world. So anyone who reads it will see that there are differences, and yet there are also similarities. Even the sort of pictorial element that was so dominant in in the familiar is somewhat subsumed by the oratical voice that is sort of dominant in Tom's Crossing. You see, here's the thing. I moved to Provo, Utah from New York City when I was 10, and I left when I was just shy of 18, or right after 18. And I never wrote about it. Now, I don't know why. Nothing. Like, you know, it doesn't appear in House of Leaves, it's not in the familiar. And I think there was this anxiety about writing. I didn't know how to write about it. And in some ways, I didn't feel worthy to write about it because there were elements there that are conflicted. They're difficult. It was a highly religious community that I moved into, and I wasn't part of that religion. And yet, the things that were spoken of were so beautiful. And yet, the beauty that was spoken of didn't even compare to the beauty that surrounded that valley. And in some ways, I have to say, I was a little melancholy, even though it wasn't unexpected, when Robert Redford died. Because Robert Redford was kind of the patron saint in Provo, Utah. I mean, 20 minutes away, he had this ski resort called Sundance. This is not the Sundance Film Festival. The festival started, it was called the American Film Festival in Park City, and then eventually took on the name of Sundance, and then it was held in Park City. But Sundance itself was very close to Provo, and it was in the midst of this just these gorgeous mountains. And Robert Redford, who was actually on the edge of being a reclusive movie star, would never, was a big voice in the community towards preserving that beauty. And that's kind of, I think, what I really ultimately wanted to write about, was to somehow tackle that beauty that I know you experience here. I know it. It's everywhere. It's that moment that just suddenly just like shocks you, right? It's like when it's extremely hot in the summer and it's really humid and you can hear the corn, right? It's possible. Maybe you're imagining. Maybe you're having heat stroke. You're hallucinating. It's possible too. But I'm saying there are these moments everywhere you go, and it goes beyond the context this cultural context that demands all our attention on these tiny little screens, It is something that is evaporative, ephemeral, and yet mighty. And so, back to your question, it's been probably on my mind and definitely in my heart for a long time. And I think there was a point, especially as the pandemic came on, I'm sort of figuring some of this out right now, where I realized, well, I might die. Time is going to run out. And I will never have even tried to write it, And I think something in the book that is very precarious may have also been informed by the pandemic, having lost neighbors. A neighbor who was young died of COVID. That kind of experience that suddenly, oh wow, this can happen, Some of the people that inspired that are characters in House of Leaves died from COVID, And then, of course, to see the way the nation tore itself apart in the pursuit of something that everyone really meant well. Not everyone, but people wanted, to help other people in the way they thought. It was just, it was there in the book in that way, right? In the sense that at any moment, the voice could perish. So once I finished it, I was like, well, that's it. But now I'm going to add a slightly more mystical part to this question, which is, the familiar failed, and I had spent a long time conceiving of it before I even started to write it. And I imagined this as a life's work. And when it ended, there was a period of just great denial. I'll figure another way to do it, right? All of the things that you've read online, if you've explored this subject, I went through it. Like maybe you could crowdsource it, maybe you could do it a different way, all of it. It just didn't work. It was gone. And so then I wrote this tiny children's book that I'm very proud of called The Little Blue Kite. And I thought, well, maybe answers it. In some ways, it deals with grieving, it deals with letting go of things. And then I thought, well, I'm going to write this little thing about you, Tom. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish Tom's Crossing. I know what the story is. And it was a voice in the woods, you know, that sweet little voice that says, it's right there in the aspens and birches. I'm not joking either. And it's like, come on, do it. It's easy. You know, what's going to happen? It's two kids stealing some horses. That's it. That's the kind of stuff you grew up with. You know this, you're going to write it in no time. It'll be a little novella. It'll be easy. Whenever a voice in the woods tells you it's going to be easy, you should run. Or be prepared for something very different. And so soon enough, I was in there, and then I found there was no nice little woods or meadows or anything. I was on this rubble of a steep mountain, and by then I was saddled with responsibilities, and there was something more at hand. And I realized, kind of midway through, that all of the energy that I had to write the familiar was still there. I thought it was something else, but it wasn't. So as different as this may seem to you, if you've read the familiar, this is the familiar. This is all of it. You know, this is all 27 volumes, in 27 chapters. But I think it's also a life lesson too. We have this energy, we have this urge to do something, and we go do it, and it doesn't work out. And then we think, oh, it's gone. My spirit is spent. But no, that spirit isn't spent. That spirit can move through something else, and it's just as powerful. And so that's what happened with Tom's Crossing. It's a little hard to talk about beyond that because it's really about what happens at the end, you know. And for me, it was very hard because this incredible voice that I was servant to basically told me how to write this whole book, you know, then departed. And the absence that I feel is not a joke. It's not something that can be reconjured, you know. I was very privileged to be able to write this down and pass it along to you. But it's not me. I'm irrelevant at this point, you know. It's in there now, and that's the story that was told. Yes. Yes.
What do you think about, have you heard about any fan works based on House of Leaves?
Question is, have I heard of any fan works based on House of Leaves? I have. I haven't read any recently. Have you?
Do you know about the game My House Not Wad that's based on your book?
I do know about that one. Yeah, that was... is everyone here familiar with My House Not Wad? Yeah. Okay, we're all 6, 7. I think it's really cool. I mean, you know, it's one of the things that's kept me from selling the film rights. You know, is that the book then gets kind of enchained by sort of like corporate laws and customs, and everyone's like, oh no, you can do that, and you own the license for this and stuff. But people get more afraid, you know. And here, you know, House of Leaves doesn't have that. So there's kind of this wild, you know, profusion of things. People do stuff online. People do art, you know, and really the only one who can't do anything is Disney or Netflix. So I'm all for that. Yes. Oh, in the back, black hat.
So, you know, when House of Leaves came out, there was an added depth to the experience with the album Haunted. What would you, if you were to give me a top 5 playlist that could be coupled with Tom's Crossing, what would it be?
Oh, what a question. So the question was that the album Haunted added great depth to House of Leaves, and then what's the playlist that I would provide for Tom's Crossing? So I'm going to derail completely that question, all right? Because for those of you who don't know, the album Haunted was written by an artist named Poe, who's my sister, and it was way more than a playlist. She was writing it while I was writing it. So her album influenced House of Leaves. And then in writing House of Leaves influenced Haunted. So it was this rare convergence of where our artistry was at the same time. It was actually supported by the corporations that were releasing it. We toured together. My sister was incredibly smart. She realized that the climate was changing and no one was playing women anymore on the radio at this moment. So she said, why don't you do a spoken word? So I read some of the parts of House of Leaves on her song, Hey Pretty. And the song went to 14 in the country. And we went on Conan. And she was asked to open for Depeche Mode. So, you know, I know there's a lot of thrills here, but I probably am the only author you have ever talked to who played at Madison Square Garden 2 nights in a row. I'm going to tell you the whole story too, which is that my sister's set was like 45 minutes, and I got 5 minutes. Otherwise, I was downstairs. I was persona non grata on the stage, except for those 5 minutes. But then I got up there, I got to be a rock star for 5 minutes, and then it was over. So what makes your question difficult is that it's not a set playlist, you know, and I'll have to think more on it. And I also don't want to, I hesitate to answer because there are some songs that I think are great. But there's something that happens when the author says, well, I like these songs. And then everyone kind of feels foolish about the songs that connect for them. And I don't want to do that. Fair?
Absolutely.
All right. Yes.
I know that you mentioned the lists of influences in House of Leaves, and we also kind of went into fan works. But how does it kind of feel for you to be kind of cited as an inspiration to other authors and to kind of be held up, especially with House of Leaves, as kind of the epitome of like an entire subgenre of literature?
How does it feel? I mean, think about it. Think about if that was your story and someone said, well, how do you feel? It's like, wow, how deep do I go? I think the thing I love about my books is they take time. They all do. Even the 50-Year Sword, which you can read in an hour, it takes time. And so that's especially true of House of Leaves. Like when it started, it had a printing of 10,000 copies. So that's not a lot. Spread that out over the United States, put half of them in boxes in the back of the store, and it's like, you know, it's amazing anyone could find them, right? But it slowly continued, and it became its own thing. And I told the story before. It was very meaningful to me, and it was meaningful to me because it kind of it changed in a way how I looked at the book. Because probably you're asking, because you're like, how would that feel? And then you're going to realize right now that I feel the same way. Like, how does that feel? Like, it's strange. It's strange, you know. But I was at this art show, and this guy comes up to me and he goes, "Are you the guy that wrote House of Leaves?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I haven't read your book." I said, "That's fine. It's nice to meet you." And he told me this very sad story. And he said his daughter had attempted suicide. And when she came out of the coma she was in, he said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And she said, "Will you get me House of Leaves?" Wow. Now that wasn't me. Sorry. That was the book becoming something else. You know. And you know, all you can hope for is that you were worthy of that. Because as much as as I was the one moving the pen, you know, and shaping that book, the same with Tom's Crossing, it's so much more. It's all the teachers I had. It's all the friends I had. It's all the people that I met when I was on tour. You know, their stories in a way are part of Early Revolutions. You know, that young, dynamic kid who wants to get out. And then, if you've done it right, and this goes for anything, it becomes more than you. I don't care if it's a book or it's a painting, or I don't care if it's a farm that you own. It's something more than you. You become a steward for these voices, for your education. Like, part of House of Leaves is my Yale education. You know, you read House of Leaves, you've got a Yale education in the 80s. That's what it is, you know? There's an immense amount of books. There's more books than that. But the way I finally framed it is they're like my kids. And the reality is that House of Leaves is the oldest. And House of Leaves has its own relationships with people out there. And I'm the dad. It's not so cool to have the dad around. It's like, oh, there's your dad. I don't want to talk to you. That's kind of how it works, you know? So everyone who's with House of Leaves, cool. He's a cool kid. I think, you know, he, she. I don't know, actually. Probably more spectral, actually, if we're going to talk about gender identity of House of Leaves. It's a house, right? It's a performative inner space and outer space. It's very complicated. Has some very cool friends. I don't understand all the friends, but I like them. And, yeah. So that's it. Oh, one last thing. Oh, no, you had a question. Or did I answer it already?
Well,
I do talk a lot. I
after
get it.
the story, my question's not so important.
No, sir. That's, yeah. All right, ask me your question.
Mine was just, I've been fortunate enough to visit that area twice, once as a younger man and then a second time a few years ago. So I recognize some of the places you described in your story, but I found it fun that some places you rearranged the letters for a new name, but a handful you just left the same. Was that just you having fun with the story, or was there a purpose there?
Oh, so we're getting into the book. We're getting into
Well, I'm
secrets.
trying to avoid spoilers.
How many people have finished the book, by the way? Oh, wow. There you go. How many people have started the book? Oh, all right. How many people who started the book are going to finish the book? By the way, that's the right answer. So there is videotape, and we're going to try. So this gentleman who's finished the book is asking about the purpose of the changed names. Now, there is a purpose. And the territory that's explored in that region of Utah, which even those of you who have started, is very precise and particular, has also been altered in ways. Right? And how that functions within the book is, I really leave up to the reader. That's something that readers need to explore within themselves. But I will say, at least just to offer some satisfaction, it's also to draw attention how we change what we remember, right? All of us have an altered view of what's hometown and what happened that one night when we were all hanging out. There are always these little differences that are apparent. And so that's what it draws attention to, if you will, you know. Now, why particularly the Wasatch Mountains have been changed to Isitch, it's not just that. There's more that's going on there. And if you're curious, I would investigate that. And one of the best ways to investigate that is to talk to other people and what they think. Yes.
You said that you've had the same editor
Yes.
all these years.
I have.
Recently, I watched a movie called Genius about Max Perkins, who was the editor for Faulkner. And the question came that the editor wondered if he had changed the book.
Oh, great question.
So, first of all, what a job to edit your book. I mean, to keep it all in mind. Talk about your editor a little bit.
So the question, if you didn't hear it, was I've been with my editor since I think 1997, so even more than 25 years. And we have worked on all of these different projects. And you can imagine like how different House of Leaves is from Only Revolutions, which is a poem basically, 360 pages, 360 words per page, 36 lines per page, is cross-referenced. I mean, we had to invent a different vocabulary for how to edit you know, the familiar required a team. Like I had art designers I was working with, translators. It was like, you know, sort of like an architectural office in a way. And then along comes Tom's Crossing, you know. And I mean, just feel for this guy, because the draft that I considered sending him was 1,800 pages long. And then, as a gift to him, I worked very hard, and I reduced it to 1,600 pages. So we then proceeded to cut 400 pages. It's a whole other book. So don't ever talk to me about meandering or something in there that doesn't matter. You have no idea. I get it. One story is easy, it's sugar, it's like going up the steps. You get a little view. But there are other stories in there. And yes, they are more difficult to understand. But they are there for a purpose.
So my wife is a big fan. And I'm listening to you tonight. I haven't read, but I want to dive in. But it sounds like your process. I can't imagine the mind castle that you have to sit in to write these books.
It's in ruins.
I'm kind of getting a sense that you have equal parts super organization, but then on the other side, just an organic experience that you just sit in. Can you describe that process, I guess, a little bit? I know you've already answered a lot of that, but I'm just kind of curious to hear a little bit more.
So the question was, what's your mind castle look like? You heard the answer. And then the speculation that I'm super organized and also super open to kind of a free flow.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful speculation. What made you think that?
Part of it is the way you sat with your latest book for 6 or 7 years.
Right.
And that you had it sitting in your head for that. You didn't talk about having this huge outline or story arcs that you've had this huge map on. So that's kind of where I'm getting the sense that you like to really sit in and just let your world explore. But then when you look at Own Revolutions and you have just the really unique, the poem, the precision, the side notes, you flip it around and then you read back the other way. That to me speaks to something that is much less organic, but very choreographed. And so I just see a dichotomy there between the way that you're approaching these books. That's where I'm coming from on that.
So obviously this guy's hacked my computer. Very exposed. You know, it is beautifully observed. There is a part that is highly organized. There's no way I could have written, you know, all the books. Certainly Tom's Crossing. There are spreadsheets, character notes, time frames, all of that, you know. But as I said earlier, there's also performance. It's the same as a jazz musician. Like, you sit down and that's the moment. You know, I write, you know, 5-6 days a week. And every day is kind of new. Even though I know Tom and Kaylin, you know, are going to go ride the horses, there's a surprise there. There's something that is absolutely just exciting. What are they going to say? What's going to happen? And there are too many spoilers, but if I ever come through again, like in 2 years, and you've all read Tom's Crossing, and we can sit down, I'll sit down, and I'll be like, let me tell you what I thought was going to happen. And it didn't happen. And that happens even on down to a verbal level. You know, it's like you make the plan, and then suddenly the character does something else. The character they've changed. They become something other than you. And there's a lot of kind of metaphors I've used over the years. Like, one is like when you're really creating something, you know, you pack it all in so the mass increases to the point where you are in its orbit, right? It commands everything. It's not hard to get back to it because it has so much gravity and pull that you're constantly pulled into it. You're outside, you're thinking something comes up. It's all about this story. So that's one. The other one is my father was a theater director and film director, and one of the most important things he would always say, and he said this with the, most caustic tone of voice you can imagine, is reading is not acting. Acting begins when you are no longer reading, right? So you are off book. So in some ways, all of that planning, right, isn't the performance. It's the preparation. And then there's a moment of performance. And so for me, when I keep a journal about how much I write, and it's a very simple journal, just literally how many, how long I wrote and how many pages, it never includes planning. It never includes organization. It's only when I was performing, like I was writing. That's all that matters. So when someone's saying, I want to plan this and that, just understand you're not writing. Writing is actually when you sit down and you just do it. Back to the question of influences, which I forgot. The interesting thing about Tom's Crossing is that for me, it's very much like a black box, a neural network, large language model, whatever metaphor you want to use. I cannot trace its influences. I can say, I saw these movies, I read these books. But there's kind of an aggregation, almost like a geological compaction of everything that I've read and experienced that finally found its way into this voice. And its distillation is beyond anything that I could say, that came from that. And that's why it's, I think, a particularly special book for me. Because its distillate goes beyond anything I could trace. I think last question, and we'll do some signing. Does that sound good? Yes, sir. And we can get yours too. Okay, I saw that. All right. Yeah.
In my short, what I've read of Tom's Crossing so far, I've noticed that you're using a lot of future ergodic elements, and I believe you call it like symbiography kind of thing of the way that you've played out House of Leaves and Only Revolution and Familiar and stuff. And I'm curious as to what that means for your style going forward. Are you going to be moving away from this kind of unique layout? Are you going to be, is this just a one-off?
What's next is the question. It's an awful question. It's a great question. It's a great last question. A lot of pressure on you now. I don't know. I really don't know. It's the first time I really thought, I've considered never writing again. I mean, legally I can't. I owe Pantheon one more book. So I have to. But there is that moment of like, I don't know if what else? Like, this is as good as I can do. I mean, I just, my wife looked, after she finished reading it, she's like, this is a banger. Which in my wife's, like, says things very succinctly. Banger means it's over, you're done, you're never going to get better than that. And she doesn't say that, and she goes, yeah, you should write next. I'm like, what? A recipe book. I took it seriously, maybe. Like, I don't know. Like, it's like literally, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't think that voice in the wood is ever going to come back to me. The voice of the mountain is, you're done. And so now it's the voice of the oven, I guess. I really don't know. I don't know. It's in some ways I'm just kind of staying open now. Now without any kind of design or layout or looking for, I guess, influences and new things and but I feel so like empty that I'm really not sure what's next. Last question.
It's kind of a build-up of what a lot of other people were asking, but like the way that you've been talking about Tom's Crossing tonight, it feels like it's almost like something possessed you. Like, is that something you would agree with? Like, the voice in the woods, like, even just how, like, this is much, like, this is just, like, pure words. Like, it's a lot less visual than a lot of your other books. And
yet it's so visual.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's weird.
But, like, do you truly feel like something, like, how much of this book truly feels like yours compared to just, like, something possessing you?
Was I possessed? How much of this book was really mine? It's like, the previous works are so, visibly visual. This isn't, and yet it is. I mean, That's one of the sort of tricky elements of the book. The book is designed by me. I designed every single page. So even though it appears like a normal book, its density is designed. Even page breaks are designed. So even though it's on a much more granular level, it's all there. Now, does that work? I don't know. Does that have a function? I don't know, but that's what I did. You know, when you read that, you're not looking at just an algorithm that spat out like pagination. You're looking at a lot of choices all the way to that deckled edge. And then what I was saying about like influences, that sense of like the aggregate, it goes beyond just, oh, you know, he read Bologna. Here it is. You know, it's not that easy. And yes, in a way of letting go, right? That you have the mechanism, you have the story, you know, 2 kids, you know, they take the horses, you know. So you know that, and then something else is there, and I don't know what that is. And I think in this case, it's incredibly musical, and yet it's incredibly visual. And that, I think, is what that person was trying to say to me when he said it was more vivid than cinema. It was like there's a vividness, and yet there's this oral experience at the same time. And as I mentioned, we're doing the audiobook right now, and I'm kind of amazed at some of the sentences. Like, I'm like, it's not a pat myself on the back, but I'm like, where did that come from? And the actor, after a certain section, will be like, where did that come from? I mean, because we're like, when you're doing a book, when you're doing an audiobook like that, you know, it's not easy when you're like, hey, the verb you're looking for is like at the bottom of the page. It's a suspended verb, right? It's basically Latin in this experience here. And so understanding how that whole thing works is kind of boggling. And if I thought it through, I understand it completely, and I would know how to do it. But there was, again, this kind of music. It's like you practice skills, and then finally you let go. You let go of the rules and everything, and you just go. And you go at a blinding speed. And a blinding speed can just be a page, by the way. But it's still so much. And you see what I'm doing, right? I'm avoiding the word possession.
Yeah, I know.
And yet, it feels that way. And so one of the other stories that's not as easy is it does go back to the days of yore, to the Homeric question of what is war in the Iliad. Right? And the Iliad is definitely an important book. No spoilers here. And what an amazing epic to revisit, and yet how awful to realize that thousands of years later, we're still doing the same thing. And there was a possession that would take place on the field, understanding what was going on. A higher sense. We've all had it. We've seen our friends, our family members, strangers suddenly possessed by something that went just a little beyond who they were. Who was that? It's kind of amazing. It's when they leave, it's kind of shocking. So, on behalf of the voice that was speaking through me for Tom's Crossing, thank you very much for coming.